Hello, everyone. We're back. And by we, I mean me. I'm back bringing you another season of I Got Nothing, a podcast for exhausted writers. It has been a very long time since I've done this, and I'm excited to jump back in. For everyone who has downloaded, streamed, replayed, whatever the terminology is, if you've rated the podcast, extra thank you. It's amazing, and I cannot believe how many people seem to enjoy listening to me talk about writing. If you are new, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. How you been? Oh boy, let's see. Last year was a bit crazy for me. Last year was fairly crazy for me. I had a lot of ghostwriting to do. I released a novella in December 2021. I re-released Slip of the Hand, an erotic thriller, and started my author Instagram. Read so many books, which was amazing. It feels so good to jump back into reading after not for a very long time. But this podcast is really near and dear to my heart, and I am so happy to be back. Another major milestone that happened last year was I finished recording and editing an audio drama called To Court Death. It is 5 episodes. It's the story of a Grim Reaper who fails to collect the soul of a young woman and tries desperately to learn what's so special about her, while also trying to stop the apocalypse. It stars myself as the character of Eli, and it stars my husband, Owen Fogg, as the character Warren. All 5 episodes are complete and up. You can listen to them right now. And I can't describe the joy I have that that project is finally finished. For some background, I wrote the original screenplay for it many years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago at this point. And about 4 years ago, I started adapting it to an audio drama, recorded most of the side characters' lines, and even edited a full episode and a half. But life got in the way, and unfortunately it had to be put on the back burner, but it has been that project that I've always had my eye on and have always wanted to finish. And so last year, I just buckled down and did it. And I am very proud of how it turned out. In addition, I've already started thinking of another audio drama that I've had percolating in the back of my mind. So I'm hoping to have some news about that at some point this year. But I'm getting far, far ahead of myself. However, in the same vein, and actually surprisingly on topic, I received this topic a while back. It might have been actually while I was doing pre-production for season 1. And I'm glad that I'm finally able to touch on it now, especially since it's something that I feel a lot of writers struggle with, myself included. The question that I received was, what inspires you and how do you gain inspiration to actually sit down and write? Oh boy. Inspiration is really a fickle mistress. She does what she wants. She shows up whenever. She leaves whenever. And she does not care what you had your mind set on before. She is there to wreck your shit. But usually it's in a good way. For me in particular, there are 3 main things that strike inspiration. The first thing for me that strikes inspiration is whatever my brain decides to hyper-focus on. I've been this way since I was a child. There's a chance it's ADHD, even though I haven't been tested. But a lot of my friends who have ADHD can concur. Occasionally, my brain just decides that it really, really likes something, and that's all I'm going to think about for the foreseeable future. When I was younger, it was pretty much anything fantasy related. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Those were the two main ones when I was a teenager, and pretty much took over my personality for most of high school. But when it came to movies and TV shows that I enjoyed, it was typically a specific actor that would catch my attention. I used to call it my actor crushes, which is an understatement. But being so focused on that piece of media would typically lead to me writing fan fiction, which is where the inspiration decided to channel. Fan fiction pretty much became my outlet, and even now at 33, it still is from time to time. But just that hyper-focus on one specific piece of media was enough to fuel my inspiration for months at a time. I've actually learned a lot now that I'm older and write for a living, that I tend to get withdrawn and depressed a little bit if I don't have a hyper focus. It's rare when that happens, especially now with how much media I consume on a daily basis. It's way more than when I was a teenager, just by the fact that I have a smartphone with me at all times. But there was a certain point where I got older and my brain did that thing where it was like, okay, you're an adult now, so you can't be having little actor crushes that take over your personality, and you can't be focused on shows. The inner voice is full of shit. It's my process at this point. It's gotten me this far, so if it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it. And I've been able to channel that a lot into original works and, my own projects. For example, when I was completing To Court Death, I had a moment of inspiration and finally had an idea of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to complete the episodes. And once I had that in my head, I literally worked on it nonstop for 2 months or so, closer to 3 possibly, until it was done. Like, all 5 episodes, done, edited. I scheduled them to release every other week and scheduled my social media posts, and it literally just ran on its own for its release. And having that hyper focus was so important during that time, even though I didn't do anything else. But it got the job done, and I am super proud of how it turned out. Another big source of inspiration for me is music. I love music. I have Spotify Premium, so I listen to music constantly. I think I've mentioned this before. I make playlists for a lot of the work that I do and a lot of my big personal projects. Typically, the first thing I will do when I have an idea, after writing the idea down, is create a playlist for it. And what that has been able to do for me is when I hear a playlist that is associated with a particular project, it immediately helps me jump into that mindset. So if you've read both my books, or one of my books, Slip of the Hand or Lost in the Dark, both of those books have playlists. And I actually used that in my marketing when I was releasing Lost in the Dark. I had several Instagram posts where I took people through the playlist and shared one song at a time and explained how it connected to the story and what lyrics resonated with me. And I cannot say this enough. Music is fantastic. I know a lot of people find it difficult to listen to music and type at the same time, or consume any other media and type. For me, that's hit or miss. Sometimes I need the quiet. Other times, having a YouTube video or the playlist in the background helps me focus. But most of the time, if I just play the playlist for a few minutes before I start writing, my brain just automatically associates those songs with those characters, and I'm able to just kind of slip back in to what I was doing. Even now, there'll be certain songs that I added onto a playlist early on in the writing process, but that song is connected to another project, so I have to take it off because when I hear it, I just think of the other project and not the one that I'm supposed to be focusing on. So I try not to have too much crossover in my playlist, but a lot of times it's inevitable because there are certain songs that I just love so much and I can easily talk myself into being like, oh yeah, that song totally fits with whatever I'm working on right now, just so I can listen to it. If you're unsure about using music or you get caught up in the lyrics, there are a ton of ambient playlists on Spotify and YouTube and iTunes, which is just instrumental music, which can help too. You know, if you're writing a suspenseful scene and play some suspenseful music in the background, it can definitely bring out that emotion in you, which for me is so much easier to write when I'm in the middle of it. I think that's the thing a lot of people don't realize about writing, is that when we're writing these emotionally charged scenes, we are feeling those emotions. At least I am, which I think I've covered on a podcast before. But it's worth repeating because it explains why writing is so exhausting. You're not just writing these feelings down, you're remembering how they feel and trying to describe it the best way that you can. And when you do it the right way, you feel that emotion, which is great and what most writers strive for and what we want our readers to go through. So if you're hesitant about trying music to gain inspiration, try something instrumental so you don't get caught up in the lyrics. And you don't have to put it on while you're writing. Just try putting it on like 5 minutes before you write. And if you want to write and just can't seem to get yourself to pick up that pen or, bust out the keyboard, then just listen to the music and see if that jogs anything. There have been plenty of times where I've been driving home with a certain playlist playing and just have I call it a brain blast, but it's an idea. I'm a millennial, so Jimmy Neutron. My brain automatically goes to brain blast, but I'll have an idea while I'm driving just based on the music, and I'll just excitedly talk to myself while my son sits in the back giving me funny looks. Yeah, so music, can't stress it enough, great inspiration. But another thing that inspires me, and this one may be a little weird, it might not resonate with some people, but I actually get a lot of inspiration from my dreams. I have very vivid, detailed dreams almost every night. I don't want to say every night because that's just impossible. Like most people, a lot of times I don't remember what I'm dreaming, but most of the time I do. My brain works like a movie when I'm picturing things, hence my dreams act like movies. So there's been a lot of times where I have just, as soon as I've woken up, grabbed my phone, opened like memos, and just typed what the dream was that I have. I have so many of them saved on my phone. I actually want to upload them to my Google Drive or something so I don't lose them, because I always mean to try and interpret them after, which is one of my favorite things to do, but I never have time during the day, so I just have a bunch of notes on random dreams that I've had. But the vividness of them is a great source of inspiration. I know there have been several fanfics of mine that were a dream that I turned into a fic. I believe one of them was one of the Constantine one-shots called Warrior. Most of that was a dream, at least the beginning part of it was, with very little edited for story purposes. So as crazy as it sounds, try writing down some of your dreams and see what comes up. You never know the kind of stuff your brain will come up with, especially if you're someone like me who dreams frequently and vividly. Those crazy movies that sometimes I wish I could actually watch back can be A, very entertaining, and B, pretty good at giving you points of inspiration. Even if a full dream doesn't translate to any kind of story I want to do, occasionally there'll be scenes or snippets of dialogue that I remember that I just work into a scene. I think most of that is because of the hyperfocus I mentioned before. When I say I hyperfocus on something, it really does dominate my life, consciously and subconsciously. So a lot of times I will have dreams about the things that I'm hyperfocused on, and that is always fun, especially if it's surrounding a really cute actor, We all love those dreams. Regardless of where you get your inspiration, I think it's important to note that there's no right or wrong way to be inspired. I think one of the things that writers forget is that you can be inspired by reading as well, which is why most writers are very avid readers, because consuming stories, at least for me, just makes me more excited to work on my own story. I think that's an important piece to it, and I know I've touched on this before, but consuming different media is a great way to keep your inspiration flowing, because if you're consuming the same thing over and over and over again, you're not really gleaning anything new from it, or you may not be, which can make it difficult for inspiration to strike. So for me, most of the stuff I write is romance-based or sort of dramatic adventures. But a lot of the media I consume are like true crime documentaries and like horror movies, which don't have to do with what I'm writing, but is a different story and a different genre, so it keeps my conscious mind kind of working on something else other than the media I like, if that makes sense. All in all, don't feel like the way you're inspired is wrong, or don't try to force someone else's way upon yourself. That's a big lesson that I'm still trying to learn. A few months ago, during the summer, I had a huge hyperfocus, and I got really upset because I was so focused on my own work for so long that this was taking my mind away from that. And I felt like that was a bad thing. And I was like, no, I want to work on this. I have a pirate novel that I'm in the middle of, I just finished this audio drama and I want to start on my next one. I don't have time to be focusing on Eddie Munson, but goddamn, Joseph Quinn is so charming that I couldn't help it. And actually, it ended up helping me because at the end of July, beginning of August, I got COVID. And I got a really, really bad case of it. I'm vaxxed and I had a booster shot. All three of us got it in the house. We all had varying strains, but mine was literally the worst. I couldn't even swallow water. My throat hurt so bad. And one of the things that actually got me through that week was watching Stranger Things and writing Eddie Munson fan fiction. it wasn't wrong. It wasn't dumb, quote, in some way to focus on something seemingly silly instead of my own work. It was, I feel horrible. This makes me really happy, so I'm going to do this thing for now. And honestly, that's what it boils down to. Does it make you happy? Cool. Are you hurting anyone? No? Great. Keep doing it. I say to myself, knowing full well I sound like a hypocrite because a lot of times I don't take my own advice, but I am working on it. I am working on it. I promise. So to the person who asked the question, thank you so much. I hope I have answered it significantly enough for you. It feels so good to be back down in my little basement with my little microphone. As always, you guys can find me on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a Twitter. I don't use it that often. I don't think any of us do anymore. Or if you want to find me on Tumblr, I have a, quote, business one, which is silly because it's Tumblr. But I also have my random good time fanfiction one, which is Lady Fog. So Fogg. You can also find my fanfiction on Archive of Our Own under the same name. Apologies in advance for anything you might see and or read. Not because it's terrible or anything like that, but because it's a little freaky. And by a little, I mean it's freaky. It's fanfiction. That's what it's for. Again, you can also find my books at Amazon by searching Leani M. Lopez. They are available for Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and in paperback. And go check out To Court Death, an episodic podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for encouraging me to keep doing this. And can't wait to talk to you guys again. Bye!